hey, Vedant, what platforms should I be creating on? Now, a lot of coaches that I work with make this mistake of thinking that they should be creating on all platforms, or they should be creating on, on Instagram, where in fact they should be actually posting on LinkedIn frequently. And from whatever I understood after speaking with all of these thousands of coaches, I realized that the most successful coaches follow a format that is the primary and the secondary. So all successful coaches who have made a good digital business, who have made good video sales funnels online, have one primary social media platform where they put in about 70% of their effort, and then 1 to 2 secondary social media platforms that they put in about 30% of their effort. Now, the question then begets is, what is my primary platform and what is my secondary platform? And the answer to that is that it completely depends on who your audience is, who it is that you are selling coaching services to. Let's take a couple of examples over here. If you're a business or a professional coach, you already know this, that LinkedIn is going to be your primary channel. You need to be active on LinkedIn. If you're a professional coach, a business coach, a sales coach, and if you're not active on LinkedIn, then you are leaving tens of thousands of dollars on the table. Everybody knows this, right? But a lot of people don't know that YouTube can be a very, very powerful secondary channel for business coaches, professional coaches, if done right, to be able to generate really massive outcomes, right? We'll talk a little bit more about that in the second half of the presentation. But if you're a business or a professional coach, or if you are dealing with any sort of business topics, sales topics, etc., LinkedIn needs to be your primary platform and YouTube needs to be your secondary platform. We are going to talk about why the other platforms are not relevant for you just to begin with in a quick second. Let's talk about another category of coaches. If you're a fitness or a wellness coach, your primary platform is 100% Instagram. And I'm telling this to you from experience of having worked with thousands of coaches, right? The most successful fitness and wellness coaches are using Instagram as their primary platform to generate views, generate leads, and then, convert those people, along with a combination of YouTube and Facebook as their secondary platforms, right? That's what the most successful coaches are doing today. And the reason for that is obviously the fact that your customers are more often than not hanging out on Instagram mostly, right? They might also be hanging out on Facebook. We'll come to that nuance in just a bit, but they are almost always hanging out on Instagram. Let's take another example. If you're a relationship coach or if you're a religion coach, then again, the same thing applies, right? Most of your customers are definitely hanging out on Instagram. Some of them will also be hanging out on YouTube and Facebook, and they're just good platforms for you to build your presence over time and reach more people. Now, you might be wondering at this point, you've spoken about Instagram, you've spoken about LinkedIn, you've spoken about Facebook, YouTube. What about like TikTok and X and, other platforms? Those platforms come with a nuance. And the nuance of those platforms is this. If you're beginning to do this, or if you're just fairly new, or if you've nailed one of these platforms only, and if you're trying to scale it, you don't need to be thinking about Twitter, X, or TikTok. And the reason for that is this. TikTok should only be a platform that you are active on if your target audience as a coach is Gen Z. Now, that is not something that I come across very frequently when I'm talking to coaches. Not a lot of coaches are coaching the Gen Z generation, right? And that's where most people are. TikTok is where most of Gen Z is hanging out. And that's why when I see coaches who are trying to do TikTok, and I'm like, hey, are you sure about it? It can be a good additional platform once you've nailed your primary platforms and your secondary platforms. But to begin on TikTok as a coach, I would not personally recommend it. And the data that we have of millions of videos that our software has posted suggests the exact same thing. Similarly, for Twitter or X makes sense for coaches only if your target is slightly geeky men who are over 30 plus. Now, I say this because if you think about the demographic that hangs out on Twitter, you will see that it is largely skewed towards men. That's number one. And it's also largely skewed towards people who are, into technology and into they're what you would call the geeks or the nerds of the classroom, right? And not in a bad sense, but unless and until you're very, very sure that your audience is hanging out on X and that's the platform that you should be creating on, and X is your primary or your secondary platform, I have seen from my experience that in most cases, X is none of the two, right? So that means that for 90% of the coaches, or I would say almost 95% of the coaches, such as yourself, who is watching this video right now, some combination of LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook is the most ideal combination to get started. You can, of course, choose to expand into TikTok and X if you need to, or Blue Sky and all of these new different platforms that have come up. But if you want to make the most of the effort that you are doing, and if you want to really make this system successful for yourself, then you need to understand that you cannot be, placing your bets everywhere. You need to concentrate your bets. And from all the research and all the data points that we have, this is what we've learned. All right. Let's now get into the next part of our presentation, of our masterclass, which is, we've spoken about this, right? The next question is, how do I do all of these platforms together, right? That's the next question that most coaches come to me with. And they're like, hey, you say that it's good to do LinkedIn and it's good to do YouTube and it's good to do Facebook. I just don't have the time or the bandwidth or the team to be able to do this. I don't know what my strategy should be. All of those questions tend to keep coming in. And if you are someone who has the same kind of question, then this next part is going to be super important for you, because I'm going to show to you a killer system in action, which is the pyramid content system that you can easily implement for yourself and do this platform strategy, use this platform strategy, and build your own video sales funnel. Let's get right into it.